Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Cottagecore channel, your go-to spot for seasonal home decor inspiration. I'm Luna, and today we're diving into rustic spring vibes and vintage charm. If you've been wanting to refresh your space for the new season, you've come to the right place. We've got a mix of cozy, charming, and timeless ideas to make your home feel warm and inviting this spring. Before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button like this video and leave a comment below with your favorite decor tip. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, welcome. Be sure to stay tuned for more fun decor ideas and inspiration in future videos. Alright, let's jump into it. Whether you want to add vintage touches or rustic warmth, I've got some amazing room-by-room ideas to help you transform your home. Get ready for some spring magic, because we're about to dive deep into rustic and vintage home decor. When you think of rustic spring vibes, the living room is the perfect place to start. A great idea is to incorporate vintage wooden furniture. Think a reclaimed wood coffee table or bookshelves. These pieces will instantly add warmth and rustic charm, making the room feel welcoming and cozy. Pair these with soft, neutral-colored throw pillows to balance the more rugged textures. You can also embrace spring florals by adding a few vintage-style vases with fresh flowers or faux blooms. Something like lavender, daisies, or baby's breath will work beautifully to give your living room a fresh, airy look. If you find a distressed ceramic vase, even better. It brings that perfect vintage touch. For a bit more vintage charm, consider adding antique picture frames with black and white photos or artwork. This simple detail will transport your space to a different era, giving it that nostalgic and cozy feeling. These elements will not only look great, but they'll make your home feel like a place that tells a story. Your dining room is a prime location for rustic spring touches. Start by swapping out your table centerpiece with something that evokes a sense of vintage elegance, like an old brass candelabra, antique pitchers, or rustic wood trays. A vintage-inspired table runner or cloth with floral patterns can tie the entire setting together. Don't forget the chairs. Adding a mix of wooden chairs, some with distressed paint or a vintage feel, can create a collected over time look that's very spring-forward. Pair them with a cozy woven basket for extra storage, or use one as a plant holder for a bit of greenery in the room. For the walls, you can hang vintage mirrors with intricate frames or antique clocks to create a timeless atmosphere. The combination of these elements with soft, natural lighting will give your dining room a welcoming, rustic spring aesthetic. Trust me, your guests will feel right at home in this charming space. For the kitchen, think farmhouse meets springtime charm. Start with open shelving if you have the space. Display vintage kitchenware like mismatched ceramic mugs, old glass jars, and wooden utensils. These pieces will give your kitchen that lived-in, rustic feel that's perfect for the season. Another great idea is to add a vintage-inspired apron rack on the wall or behind a door. This small touch can make the kitchen feel like a cozy, welcoming place where cooking and entertaining come naturally. Plus, it's a great way to display some cute vintage aprons in fun spring patterns. Lastly, add some plants. Small herb pots on the windowsill or hanging planters filled with cascading ivy can really elevate the space. Not only will this add a pop of green, but it will also give the kitchen a fresh, lively spring look. A few vintage baskets for storage won't hurt either, bringing a rustic vibe to your home's heart. For your bedroom, imagine the peaceful tranquility of a spring morning with vintage-inspired bedding. A soft floral duvet cover paired with a rustic wooden bed frame will instantly set the tone for a cozy, inviting retreat. Think of adding an old-fashioned iron bedstead for that perfect vintage touch. Accent with a mix of pillows in muted tones. Think dusty rose, soft beige, and pale green. These colors reflect spring while keeping things neutral and calming. A vintage-style quilt or throw can also add texture and warmth to the bed, making it even more inviting. And don't forget the lighting. A rustic wood lamp with a vintage lampshade or an antique chandelier can add character and warmth to your bedroom. If you have a space for a small armchair, go ahead and place one in the corner with a cozy throw blanket for that ultimate vintage spring vibe. Transforming your bathroom into a rustic spring retreat is easier than you think. Start with natural wood accents. A vintage-style wooden mirror frame or a reclaimed wood shelf can instantly create a rustic feel. You can even add a small wooden stool or ladder to hang towels for an extra touch of charm. Soft spring florals work wonders here too. Think about adding a vintage vase with lavender or dried wildflowers on the countertop. Simple, soft-toned towels and a vintage-inspired soap dish will elevate the rustic feel while still feeling fresh and clean. To keep the spring vibes going, introduce natural textures like jute or linen for bath mats or shower curtains. The combination of wood, florals, and soft textiles will make your bathroom feel like a relaxing spa retreat with a touch of vintage charm. First impressions matter, and your entryway can set the tone for your entire home. Start with a vintage wooden console table, maybe with a little bit of distressing to bring out that rustic charm. Top it off with a vase of fresh spring flowers or a vintage tray with candles. Consider adding a weathered-looking coat rack or hooks on the wall to create a welcoming and functional space. An antique mirror with a distressed frame can help make the area feel larger, while also giving it a vintage touch. Lastly, don't forget the flooring. If you have a wooden floor, a rustic jute rug with a hint of floral pattern can add the perfect balance of texture and spring color. These details will make your entryway feel like a warm, rustic embrace as soon as you walk through the door. The hallway is often overlooked, but it's a great spot to incorporate some vintage charm. Hang a series of old family photos in mismatched frames, and you'll create a gallery wall full of history and warmth. Mixing in some antique mirrors can also give the space a vintage, rustic feel. You could even add a small vintage console table or an old-fashioned bench along one side of the hallway. Adding plants or vintage ceramic vases here will give it a soft, earthy feel. For the floor, a patterned runner with a worn look will tie everything together. It'll bring a cozy touch and set the tone for the rest of your home while complementing the rustic, vintage vibe. Transforming your home office into a cozy, vintage-inspired workspace is all about the details. Start with a wooden desk, ideally one with a bit of history behind it. If you can find a vintage piece, even better. Pair it with a comfy chair that has a distressed leather or fabric feel for a chic yet rustic look. Add personal touches like old books, a vintage clock, or even antique stationery items on your desk. A little brass lamp with an old-school shade will give your office the perfect warm glow while you work. For the walls, think about adding vintage artwork or old maps and frames. They'll give your office a personal, antique touch. A woven basket for organizing your supplies will also add texture while keeping everything in place. If you're lucky enough to have a porch or patio, this is the perfect space for mixing rustic and vintage elements. Start with a vintage rocking chair or a distressed wooden bench. These timeless pieces will set the mood for relaxation while adding a bit of rustic charm. Add spring florals in vintage watering cans or mason jar vases to bring a touch of nature to the space. If you have a small table, place a vintage teapot or lantern on it for a little extra charm. To complete the look, add some cozy throws and cushions to make your outdoor space even more inviting. These small, rustic touches will help you create a perfect retreat right outside your door. The children's room is another great space to infuse some rustic spring charm. Start with vintage-inspired bedding with soft pastel colors or nature motifs like bunnies, flowers, or birds. A vintage-style wooden crib or bed frame can add a timeless feel to the space. Incorporate soft textiles, like crochet blankets or knitted pillows, to add texture and warmth. These little touches will make the room feel cozy and special. Lastly, include vintage toys or a small bookshelf filled with storybooks. A rustic wooden toy chest or a set of metal lockers can also bring a playful vintage vibe. This will create a whimsical, springtime-inspired space for your little one. Don't overlook your staircase when decorating for spring. Add vintage-style runners with soft floral or geometric patterns to soften the stairs and bring in spring colors. Consider hanging a mix of vintage pictures along the staircase, creating a gallery wall that's easy to admire as you walk up. This adds a personal touch while also keeping the space interesting. A vintage-style railing or posts can further enhance the rustic appeal. These small, thoughtful touches will give your staircase a timeless and charming look. In your garden or outdoor space, add rustic wooden planters or vintage metal garden tools for a truly charming spring vibe. You could also create a little seating area with weathered wooden chairs and a table, perfect for enjoying the outdoors. Another great idea is to add hanging lanterns or string lights to give the space a magical, vintage glow as the sun sets. This will create a warm, welcoming atmosphere in your backyard. Don't forget to plant some spring flowers. Think daffodils, tulips, or pansies. These vibrant blooms will brighten up your garden, while vintage-style watering cans and garden markers will complete the rustic look. I hope these rustic spring and vintage charm ideas inspired you to add a little magic to your home this season. Remember, transforming your space doesn't have to be complicated. It's all about adding the right mix of textures, colors, and vintage touches to create a cozy atmosphere. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment with your favorite spring decor tip. I can't wait to see how you incorporate these ideas into your own homes. Until next time, stay inspired and keep creating beautiful spaces that make you feel at home.